السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time of being with us this afternoon for a very special event. Not only because I am your host today, and Mr. Gautam Singh Gupta is your moderator, but also for having with us Mr. Osman Sultan. The mastermind behind a lot of things, and you'll discover why he's a mastermind. And I would like to have to give a special thanks for Dr. Asim Al-Hajj for honoring us being with us this afternoon, attending this session. And we are very privileged with all of you. And I mean all of you, especially the students, because whenever I talk to students, I always say it, I'm talking to my future. And that's why we have to do whatever it takes in order to make things much better so they can take care of things much better for us in the future. Now, today's subject is about communication. Years ago, I used to get the excitement, the chills when I go to the post office. I don't remember when is the last time that I have been to the post office today. Couple of years from now, you probably have 5 years old, 8 years old ask you, what is a post office? It is not. Things are moving so fast, with communication being the backbone of everything. All the technologies out there that we see, communication is the backbone of it. And then we're going to be touching on those as we grow a little later into this conversation. Now, why we're doing these seminars or these webinars? Talents of Endearment is a program that is geared to help students see their future. Simple. And what we are doing is trying to create, to explore models for them to discover how they can take a vertical like communication that we're going to be talking about today and make it relevant to the future. Years ago, we used to have what we call this little phone that used to pick it up, roll, and then you connect an operator, it goes. Then we have the dial phone. And then we have the heavy cell phones, smartphones. Now, soon enough, we're going to be talking through our eyes, dialing numbers through special goggles and whatever. God knows what else is going to happen to the future. But all of this creates opportunities. What kind of an opportunities you would think? Today, things are moving so fast. Today, we're talking about 5G. And I haven't even got into it yet. They're already talking about 6G. So how fast this is not gonna change, how fast it's gonna impact our present and our future. And we will not understand how to really be able to innovate and adapt around it until we understand how things are transitioning historically. And with that, I conclude, and I give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Singh Gupta, to begin this conversation and take it forward. Please enjoy and welcome.
Mr. Thank you very much.
The floor is yours. Okay, hold on a second. Let me just cancel the share. Let me just cancel the share so it doesn't give Mr. Osman a problem.
Thank you, Dr. Abid.
You're welcome. Now I gave the floor back to you. Sorry, I got to remember these little glitches.
Thank you. Not a worry at all.
Make sure that you turn your video on, please.
Yes. Thank you and welcome to everyone on this session on the future of communications and career opportunities. My name is Gautam Singh Gupta. We all know that communications is one of the fastest growing and simultaneously one of the most rapidly changing sectors in the world economy. Abid mentioned a few things like the post office, But I remember in the 70s and 80s, when I was a young man, there were three things that defined communications in that period of my youth. The first of those was that communications were essentially one on one. And I mean both social and business communications. If I wanted to send a telex, which many of you in the audience wouldn't even have heard of, it was a means to communicate across cities, into international markets, etc. I would have a telex message typed today with carbon copies. It would start its journey, go to the telex department in my office. The telex operator would choose his time when he would want to send it. It would be received at the recipient's end. The same game would be played at that end. And by the time I got a reply on this one-on-one telex communication, it could well have been 4 days. And that was a feature of communications which was rudimentary in the 70s and 80s. It took a lot of time. It was one-on-one. When you made a telephone call, we didn't know the concept of conference calling, etc. If you wanted to speak to someone on the other end of the line, somebody else other than the one who had picked up the receiver had to be passed on to that person. And so communications remained one-on-one. The third feature of what I remember communications to be was that it was costly. You know, if you wanted to make a call to someone not in your city, let us say you're living in Dubai and you wanted to speak with somebody in Abu Dhabi, you had to book a trunk call. We used to call them trunk calls. And the operator had to be called. And then you hung around and waited near your landline phone in order to wait for the trunk operator to call you back and say, the party you wish to speak with is on the line. Would you like to speak with them? And that process could well take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 10 hours for it to happen, particularly if you were making an international call. Now imagine you were sitting next to your landline phone, not certain when your call would be actually put together. And it could take as much as 5, 6, 10 hours for that telephone call to come through. And you're immobile. You have to sit near your landline phone. See how things have changed. In the last 10, 15, 20 years, we are seeing that the cost of communications has gone down to practically zero. I can make a WhatsApp call today. I can make a Skype call. I can make a two-talk call. I can send messages via social media. And they are no longer one-to-one because it can be sent in a broadcast to a group or broadcast to 1,000 people at one time. The second thing is that it was no longer limited to being one-on-one. And the third was that it became real time. So what happens is that if I am sitting in a Peruvian restaurant in Dubai today, and I take a picture of the item that I'm eating, and I transmit that by Instagram to my Peruvian chef friend who lives in London and ask him for comments. And he comes back with comments that say, you know, the presentation of this menu item could be changed and improved in these 1, 2, or 3 simple ways. And then I request the manager in the restaurant where I'm eating and paying good money. And I say, may I speak with the chef for a moment, please? And the chef comes out and I say, listen, my friend in London has sent these recommendations. If you see fit, you may like to incorporate them into your menu planning. And for all you know, he's able to charge 1, 2, 3, 5 dirhams more for that menu item with just this small little input, which has been done on a real-time basis across continents. It's simply amazing the kind of shift that we have seen in the telecommunications industry in the past 20, 30 years. And it's not over. People are now talking about how a thought in my mind I can send, or I will be able to send to my computer or to my mobile smartphone or to another device. And from there, it'll go to the recipient's computer or smartphone or other device, and then into his brain. And so we'll be talking brain to brain, exchanging thoughts, and that's going to be our communication. No voice in the process. It's absolutely astonishing. I am delighted to introduce to you someone who I think will be able to tell you so much more and tell you a lovely story about the history, in a sense, of telecommunications and how it has moved over the years. I'm very pleased to present Mr. Osman Sultan. He is very well known as the former founding chief executive officer of Do in the UAE, Do Telecommunications in the UAE, and also Mobinil, which is Orange in Egypt. He's currently involved in a number of ventures, small ventures, startups, larger companies, and he's chairman and CEO of a company called Fikra Tech. But he has such a wealth of experience. I'm delighted to introduce Mr. Osman Sultan, and I pass the mic on to him now. Mr. Sultan.
Osman, the mic is yours. Please make sure you turn your video on. Super.
Thank you so much, my dear friend Gautam, for the very kind introduction. And Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Good afternoon to all of you. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to just speak and host me today. One thing that before I start, I want to add, usually the introductions are, and Gautam, you have been very generous mentioning all the things. This wealth of experience is usually a kind way of saying the guy has been here for so long, so he has been doing a lot of things. That doesn't make us look younger, but it's fine. I think we have to accept that. Two things before I start. First, I want to reiterate the thanks to Dr. Asim Al-Haj, as has been done by my dear friend Dr. Abid Baidas. We really privileged to have him with us and interested in the subject. The second thing I want to do is maybe set the scene of the presentation of today. I'm not going to speak about technology. I think that technology in itself is not important. I'm inviting you to call it a promenade of the mind, if you like. I think that today, and you all are with us, you don't need a lot of words to be convinced how communication is now impacting everything we touch in our lives. I mean, the simple fact that we are all here gathered through screens is an evidence of that. And I think we all lived how our entire life changed and has to be adapted post-COVID, how this is. So I very often say the best salesperson for the digital transformation subject is actually the coronavirus, because this is what's happening. My dear friend Gautam mentioned a little bit about certain things in transformation. I just want to illustrate that before we had mobile, the most frequently used question that people would say when communicating is, who is speaking? Who am I talking to? Because in the fixed business time and the fixed lines, we know where we are calling, but we don't know who will pick the phone. This was the uncertain. Then the most frequently used question immediately when you call someone in the mobile area was, where are you? Because we moved to the one-on-one knowing exactly who we are talking, but the uncertainty was, where is this person? Now, if I want to use a metaphor, I think we all, I'll use what Dr. Abid used at the beginning of this conference, which is everybody hearing me? Is everybody seeing me? These are the most used questions. It's an illustration of what's going on. My presentation will articulate around 4 parts, and if you allow me, I will share my screen now and take you through. Take you through this journey of Alice in this new digital wonderland, because wonderland is becoming digital. And if the takeaway that you have after my presentation are only few questions that will help what I call these new conversations is this new digital age, then I think we will have reached the purpose. The presentation will take us through 1, our world, from 2, then our city, from 2, then the workplace, because the other part of this presentation is not only the world of communication, but it's career opportunities, the workplace, from 2, and at last, as you can see, we are narrowing the story. At last, you within the society, the individual within the social fabric. Where are we heading? And some conversations, more questions than answers in this new digital age. Let's start with where the world is, and allow me to use a small picture. It's often said that a picture says 1,000 words. This is a photo. This photo is not any time, not any place. It's in 2005 and a very specific place and very specific event. It's in Vatican Square, and it's at the time of the announcement of the new Pope. So people gathered all in a certain, in their piety, in their emotion. Fast forward, it just happened that in history, and this is quite unique, that Pope just abdicated. This was the first time, 8 years after. So fast forward, 2013, same place, same event, Vatican Square, the announcement of the new Pope, and the photo just looks like this. So it's not about technology. It's much beyond that. It's not a sea of devices, mobile phones, tablets. What we don't realize and see is that every one of these lights is becoming somehow a competitor to the CNN, to the CNBC, to Al Arabiya, to etc., and all these news agencies. These are a whole ecosystem, some of them having decades and centuries that are restructuring around a new behavior of humans. So basically, the world didn't stop changing. I am from a generation, probably my friend Gautam as well, and Dr. Abed, and some of the people that are making the privilege and to us and listening to us, where we have known the Industrial Revolution, where the main keywords in what we were discussing were keywords like manufacturing, capital, labor, land. And few decades after, we moved to the information society. And we started globalization, brain power, creativity, talent, digitized information, data, etc., etc. This thing happened to show you in decades, in a lifetime, we have seen this. But The change is not something new. Change is embedded in our DNA. You know, we are born kids, then we become teenagers, then young women and young men, then we become older women, older men, we become old, etc. So, and very often we anticipate this. How many times haven't you heard a young boy, 12 years old, saying, "Oh, I'm dying to be 18 because I want to drive." I lived it with my boys. Usually boys are very eager. They want to drive. They want to, I'm dying to be, and then live by myself and start traveling alone and things like that. So, of course, few decades after, you start wanting to go the reverse side. So that's change. When it takes the normal pace, it's just evolution. If change is a little bit faster, and this is something you are all experiencing, we live it as disturbance from the little simple things that we have planned. Let's see, you are a student, you have a homework that you need to give next week, and then your teacher is telling you, "Oh, by the way, I want this homework in 48 hours. You're not in your comfort zone anymore. Your boss at work asks you the same. That you live it as disturbance. When we are in an airplane and the captain is saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are going in a zone of turbulence," because the altitude of the airplane started to change faster than it's supposed to be. You know, an airplane goes up and down in a certain planned pattern. When it changes more rapidly or the pressure changes, we feel it, we are out of our comfort zone. And these changes that we are living today are taking us very often, daily, out of the comfort zone. This is why in social dinners you see people all the time saying, "It's amazing, it's unbelievable." Now, when changes disrupt the regular pattern of things happening, then we live it as crisis. Disruptive change is lived as crisis. From a disruption in the flow of financial flows of money that lead to major global financial crisis, to more simply an acceleration, a geological scale of the speed of movement of tectonic plates in Earth that leads to earthquakes, tsunamis. These are disruptive changes. Flows are being disrupted. Flows are all around us. When the pace is disrupted, this leads to what we live in crisis. And this is what the world lived as a crisis recently, when all patterns, all flows were disrupted severely, like we have never seen in the history of modern humanity. So, does this mean that this is completely new? The headline of that, when it comes to communication, one headline, and you will see from time to time, I'll say to you, that's a headline. And if you remember, I entitled this entire presentation "Headlines for the New Conversations of the Digital Era, Digital Age." The first headline, from physical to digital. Simple, no need for a lot of words to take us there. New technologies were developed, but it's not the new technology itself that is the major disruption. These new technologies led to new capabilities. When I was 16, part of my pattern, and I needed to go play football in the city of Beirut in one of the stadiums. There was something that I had to do every time I finish, is find a grocery store that had a phone, call my house, call my mother, and say, "I finished, I am now taking the public transportation for something." She wanted this to feel comfortable. My kids, if they finish football and supposedly we ask them, and supposedly they accept these type of constraints now, they have their mobile phone. So new technologies because there is mobile technology, are leading to new capabilities. New capabilities are leading to new business players. It is remarkable to see that the top valuable companies in the world, probably 80% of these, except 2 or 3, are companies that, or the most used companies by our kids, by ourselves, are companies that didn't exist 20 years, 15 and 20 years ago. It is remarkable that these companies, the Google of this world, Google, it's mid-90s, and I'll be back to this. So new business players that lead to new business models. When I spoke about crisis, because there is a disruptive change, I was in Paris and I saw how violent the protest of taxi drivers when Uber was introduced in Paris. Because these people felt that the business model on which they build their life is going to be totally disrupted. And this happened. Entire industries were disrupted. So new business models and new business flows. This is the important. Back to the concept, there is a flow that is happening differently. The pace is disrupted. The pace is changing. Is this something completely new? Are we seeing new civilization models? Some are saying we are witnessing new civilization models. Here, I like to stop a little bit, to step back and show you a little bit of what's happening. That change is leading first to something astronomical in quantum. This is what happens. I hope that everybody is seeing, but please forget about these numbers because they are already obsolete. Unfortunately, we are in December 2020, so what happens in the entire year 2020 will be available probably in a few weeks. It would have given us a much better view of these quantums. But let me take, for instance, Netflix. Netflix, there are 266,000 hours watched every minute. All this, if you see the circle in the middle, is 60 seconds. This number was in 2017, 75,000 hours. It jumped to 266,000 hours in 2018, and it jumped to close to 700,000 hours, 694.444 hours watched in 60 seconds. I don't want to imagine with COVID what was the number of hours watched every minute, having people staying all the time at home, etc. And this change of behavior, what will be the number in 2020? I know that this number was projected to be something like in the almost 900, but I am sure that this number will be totally different post-COVID. But again, forget these numbers, because these numbers, as the moment I print the slide out of the printer, are already obsolete. There is as well a change in the speed of adoption, and that is very important. It took 68 years to the airplane to reach the 50 million users that took an airplane. It took 62 years for the phone to have 50 million users. The mobile took 12. The ATM, 18. And I'm sure that this figure, that because the slide is a slide from last year that I constructed last year, it took only a scary, I dare say, 19 days for an application. I don't know if you know what is this application. Youngest, I didn't know. My kids, this was called Pokemon Go. where people are looking in various places, various cities, etc. It took 19 days to reach 50 million users, 35 days for Angry Bird. So we are totally, this is what I'm talking about the disruption of pace. The pace of change totally disrupted. Now allow me, I talk about change, the quantum, the speed of adoption, but the most important change is not related to this and is not quantifiable. And I want to show it to you in a small video, a minute video, not by any technology company, not by a mother filming her daughter. By the way, this video, I watched it more than 10 years ago. It was the time where the iPad was launched, and this was the touch screen started. And this is the change in behavior. Let us watch this video, and then we will, and I hope that you will be hearing. She's pressing at the reset button of an iPad. Happiness. And the mother is saying, Steve Jobs has coded a part of her operating system. And this is true. This is true. Because the most important change happened in the culture that the youngest, these new generations, now you have several labels, Generation X, Generation Z, it doesn't matter. But you have customers that are used to a certain way of interacting with things. Whatever is your field, you will need to deal with these customers. We are still in the phase of transition. You still have people from the older generations. And I used to say to my teams, and of course we needed to choose them younger and younger. I used to tell them, whatever you do, you are not prepared. You are not prepared for the type of experience that these people are expecting. You need to implant this in the DNA of your company and the DNA of customer experience that you offer. Not easy, believe me, easier said than done. So now, is it something I started this theme? Is it totally new? Are we living something that never happened in the... I don't believe this. I believe that actually this is a story that is as old as civilization itself. The story is built simply on the conversion of three components. Means of transport, a content, and then this content is transported. Like we see in these movies, these trees cut in forests, then moved on rivers, and then going to places to become things that are used in our daily life, except that the content today is a different content. Nothing has changed. So transport, content, and then experience and lifestyle. The tree, the wood, will become a chair, a table, a desk, whatever, wherever. This is why an information is produced. It will become something that will be on the screen of our TVs in the news, on the screens of our phone, a text printed on a newspaper, in a book, etc. So this, in a different illustration, graphical illustration, the content, you had the dynamic of production and packaging. Here you see all the publishing, the music, the cinema, the press, the social networks that are there. Content can be as well you arriving to a mall and sending a text to your friend saying, "Where are you?" And he's saying, "I'm at Starbucks." By the way, the amount, back to this quantity of content, it was said that in 2000 and maybe 10, I don't remember, 10 or 15, the amount of content produced since the beginning of humanity, since somebody just started to write down on, carving on marble and rock, something that can remain after, and then the hieroglyph, and then etc., etc. The amount of content produced will be reproduced in only 1 or 2 years, and you probably will be able to carry it on a big hard drive. In 2015, if you wanted to watch 1 second of all the videos that are flowing on the internet, 1 second, usually I ask for a guess by my audience. Now the format doesn't allow it. It would have taken you in 2015. So imagine how much now more images and videos we have. In 2015, to watch 1 second, if you take 1 second everything and you put it together and you want to watch it, it would have taken you 5 years of your life to watch this 1 second. I need you to try to comprehend this quantum that we are. So that's the content, the first component. The second are the channels, broadcasting, distribution. And here the players are the usual suspects, the telecom operators, TV, cable networks, broadband networks, etc. The last one, the terminals. This is the logic of design, interface, computers, home appliances, PDAs, mobile phones, gaming devices, cameras, etc., etc. Last but not least, and they have been neglected for long, the users. And for them, this is a dynamic of benefit and value. They could be individuals, small offices, home offices, companies, students, government, etc. And the interesting thing in this, is that is how what I call the abundance model in which we live have been constructed. First of all, at the intersection of the content and channel, there were new aggregation business models. It is not the iPod, the iPhone, or the iPad that disrupted industries. It is the iTunes business model that disrupted first the music industry and then the video industry that had decades, if not a century of lifetime. The second thing happened at the intersection of the channels and the appliances, what I call the 3 screens, and much more to come. Why much more to come? The 3 screens, because we had in our life separately the mobile phone was a screen. Not much we could do initially with these regular, dumb mobile phones. We had the computer and we had the TV, and there was a separation between the 3. Then we started doing what we can do on a TV, on a computer. When you had the DVDs, you can put it. I started to watch my favorite film, take them with me because I had to wait in airports, do long flights on airplane. Then we started to do what we can do on the computer, on the phone. We started having our emails in the beginning because technology has been evolving. Then we started seeing what we can do on the TV, on the phone. And now with your phone, you do what you used to do with your computer, TV, camera, alarm, whatever, Rolodex, you name it. The amount of things you will do with your phone is impressive. The most important of these transformations, it's coming now on this graph, is when users started to have their say and when users started to bring life the content. The #1 media company in the world does not produce any content, YouTube. You produce this content, you and I and all of us. Now, in our webinar, we are producing content for YouTube. So this is when the users started to have a much bigger power in this equation, in this overall value chain equation of this abundance model. The way it was constructed, and I lived that. I had the privilege really of living that. As I said, doesn't make me look any younger, but fine. In 1995, ladies and gentlemen, we used to go to the internet like we go to a library. There is not much we could do of that. This was the beginning of the information highway. We used to go like we go to a library. We used to go to these search engines, and the keywords were the Google, the Yahoo, AOL. There was no other main names and keywords that we were using. 5 years after beginning of 2000, and as you know, you have a place with footfall, then immediately you have a marketplace. This is as old as, you know, initial mechanics that build marketplace in civilization. People come to trade. One person has eggs, the other person has fruit and vegetable. They come to trade, and then little by little a marketplace is constituted. So what do you have when you have a marketplace? Then you have the merchants coming in the temple. And in year 2000 and after 2000, you started having the likes of Amazon. You started to have things like the e-commerce, but little by little, we started going to the internet like we go to a shop. Now, the real revolution started in 2005 and after, when we started going to the internet like we go and sit on a cafe. We started to go to the internet like we go to a cafe. We started to go to the internet to just see what other people, meet people, see what they're saying, see to this person how she is dressed, see, oh, this is nice, what I'm eating. People started taking photos of what they're eating, sharing this. It became the cafe, but behind our screen. And this is where it took totally, the real revolution started to happen with social networking. Now, is this a deliberate construction? Is this innovation was planned and happened deliberately? I can assure you no. How does innovation happen? Innovation happens, and this is something that you always need to keep in mind. Of course, innovation happens by necessity. Necessity is the mother of all invention. When mankind needed to walk 2 hours just to get a bucket of water and to carry that, then people had the idea, let me dig a duct and bring the water. That happened by necessity. As well, it happens by exploration, where you build. Silicon Valley was a model that was built in order to channel innovation to create the entire ecosystem for that. A lot of cities around the world, Silicon Valley was an example. In France, there was the Sophia Antipolis. In the UAE, several of these cities were meant, starting by the Dubai Internet City, the Dubai Media City, then Masdar for the energy, where we want to help innovation by creating the right environment. And the last model where innovation happened is what we call serendipity, where game-changing outcomes just happen from an accidental discovery. In my opinion, Mr. Zuckerberg didn't sit and say, okay, I want to create a platform where every person on earth will, we saw it, we heard it, he wanted to create something on a campus, and then the response of people was overwhelming. And that helps in his vision. He had this vision, but that happened little by little afterward. But the sparkle happened, in my opinion, just by a serendipity. The Uber model happened in the beginning by necessity. The Uber guy was in Paris with his friend. They have experienced the absolute nightmare when you are dealing in a stormy day and a rainy day with the uncourtesy of Paris cab drivers. They came with an idea, and this idea really became much bigger than they thought, and it became even a model, the Uberization, which is really enabling people, individual to individual, without an intermediate. And that became a real disruptive model that can be applied to a lot of other parts of industries and services, Airbnb, etc. Now, this is how the world is changing. I hope that this was, I can stay hours, but let's see now, because we hear a lot of buzzwords around everything around communication. And for the sake, I'm conscious of time, so I'm trying to accelerate and get to the more exciting things. The city as well is moving from something to something. The city model will be simply, and you will see that a lot of the buzzwords that you hear, and I can admit that this can be very confusing. These buzzwords that you see here and there, AI, big data, blockchain, Internet of Things, machine to machine, etc., drones, all these, no, they fit together in one model. And the model is everything sensing, everything connected, everything smart. Let me take you through this. And the headline is, we're moving from vertical to horizontal. And when Dr. Abed mentioned in these verticals, the communication, like artificial intelligence, like data analytics, etc., are becoming horizontal. They can be applied and implemented in any other industrial vertical. They are becoming enablers. So the world is a little bit transforming this concept of vertical. Let me try to illustrate it in the most obvious example, which is the smart city model. Dubai, before the concept of smart city, was a city where a lot of things were done in a smart way. For those of you who have been knowing Dubai, you entered Dubai in a very smart way. There was the e-gate, etc. You deal with the police in a very smart way. There was everything. There was the e-government. Everything is online, whether the healthcare, the municipality, the economic department, transportation, the RTA, etc. But a city of smart departments is not a smart city. A city of smart departments becomes a smart city when you do precisely this transformation from vertical, and you can see here you have the verticals. All these existed separately: transportation, utilities, police, economic department, healthcare, municipality. When you make this transformation, and the construction is horizontal according to what we said, everything sensing, everything connected, everything smart. This transformation starts by having everything. Of course, you have to define what you want. Smart cities, for instance, in Dubai, they have defined that they want 6 dimensions. They want the city to be smart in 6 dimensions: transportation, energy, healthcare, etc. For instance, the city of Hamburg wanted this to be around the harbor. The city of Vienna, at some point for a long time, wanted, and we studied this, because when I was the CEO of DO, we bid and we were selected as the strategic partner for Dubai Smart City. So we have worked on that model. I worked personally on that. So this is where, if you see on the right of the screen, you will see a lot of these buzzwords starting to align. In the everything sensing, you have the Internet of Things, where everything that you have, from the signal in the street, to your car, to the red light, to the knob of your door, if we're talking homes, to the window of your door or your office, to the entrance of, to the elevator of your building in your office tower, etc., 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 to drones that can capture a lot of this information, to sensors that when you are at the airport, on the road, in your purse, etc. So this is the Internet of Things, and we hear more and more the Internet of Everything. These are concepts like machine communicating to machines, machine to machine. All these will create data. This sensor will say that this SIM card, and of course we have your mobile as the best sensor that could exist, your UAE ID card, your some implants that you have in your body, more and more. You know, in telemedicine, you have a lot we're considering for remote monitoring, remote diagnosis, etc., etc. So all these, and we are told that there will be tens of billions of these sensors around us. These are only capturing data. Now you bring this data together, and this is where you have the connectivity infrastructure. This is where the concept of 5G, tomorrow 6G, as Dr. Abed indicated in his introduction. And when you bring all this data, this is when you have, and this data is ingested, aggregated, stored. This is the concept of data centers. This is the big data. This is the cloud, you put them. And big data doesn't mean that you have a lot of gigabytes. Big data is that you have multiple sources that are looking. For instance, if we are talking Osman Sultan, you will have data coming from his phone, where he was, what he did. From the credit card, you will have data from the location from his car. You will have data coming from the banking information. You will have data coming from healthcare. You will have data coming from the municipality, from the police, if he had fines, etc., etc., etc. That's the big data, where all these entities and much more, government entities, private sector entities that used to work separately and have this data are now working, and this data is collected. Of course, who can collect this data, who can access this data, and more importantly, who can modify this data, these are very important conversations. And you know, you have been seeing that there has been a lot of debates. Mark Zuckerberg has been brought in front of Congress. Sanjay, the CEO of Google, has been brought in front of Congress for questioning, because it is really the being paranoid about the 1984 book of George Orwell, a book that was written in 1948, but wanted to pretend to be a little bit futuristic, and the concept of Big Brother that we are now gladly, and our kids are even more gladly giving to the Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, WeChat, Alibaba, etc., Tencent, if we take the American and the Chinese only. And I challenge everyone who is, when we read all this and put, I agree. And if you notice recently, there is not, I agree. There is a clear indication with Google because of these questions that look at other options. And every time now I look at other options and I disable certain things in the cookies and in the trackers, thinking that I might preserve a little bit of privacy. I might be totally idealistic, but it's worth trying. So the everything connected, and at the end, when this data is collected, the last part is everything can be smart. Smart in the way it is distributed. This is where something like blockchain concept. Smart in the analytics. This is data analytics. And of course, if you add to this predictive capabilities, this is where you have artificial intelligence. So as you can see in this very simple, everything sensing, everything connected, everything smart, you have all these buzzwords that align themselves. The most important thing, and I touched upon, is governance. What in this data will be open? What will be accessed by whom? Who has the right to access, to modify? Who has the right to sell some data, because some entities are collecting and they want to sell it. It cannot be nominal, but nevertheless, there is a lot of debate. Where is the privacy? Where is the privacy of individuals? Big debates and big conversations that are not going to stop recently, and where I believe if we have the right questions today, this is a great achievement. Before we try to get the right answers, make sure that we have the right questions. On top of that, of course, innovation everywhere. And this is, and I think this is something very important for you, around that, this is the foundation. This is the fertile ground for all what I call the entrepreneurs ecosystem, the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Startups, entrepreneur will feed from all this, because that will allow them to transform any bright idea they have into something, an application that will be used and that will create a lot of value. And we have seen a lot of value. We can spend a lot of time. There is another webinar on entrepreneurship that is happening next Tuesday with a great entrepreneur that Dr. Abed as well is hosting. So I'm really inviting you, for those who are more interested in that. So what happens in this process? I told you everything sensing, it's data. When you collect this data, data becomes information. It has more value. When you add intelligence to it, everything sensing, everything connected, everything smart. When you made it smart, it becomes knowledge. It becomes much more. Not only charts, but it will become possibility to predict. It will become a tool for the planner of the city to predict how these things will be needed, whether in construction, whether in population movements, whether in trends in 10, 15. And this is how plans now in cities and countries, this is why you have seen Dubai 2021, now you have seen UAE 2030, you have seen even UAE 2071 for the coming 50 years, extremely powerful enablers that we have at our disposal. One direct effect in this customization is what I call moving from the VIP to VIP. I like it. I like the twist, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time. What do I mean? Every industry has a definition of a VIP. If you are in the hospitality industry, it's according to the number of nights, according to the spend. If you are in the telco industry, it's according to the average spend you have, etc. If you are, etc., mileage, whatever. That's the VIP, and all industries, if they do their job, they have the customer segmentation around that. Tomorrow, we have to head to the segmentation of one, because big data will allow to have so much granular information. So the very important person will become the very individualized person. And we will see the marketing of a segment of one. I will talk to Mr. Gautam because I know exactly what Mr. Gautam and what he has different of Mr. Abid. They can be in the same segment, and a lot of industries are now trying to embed in their infrastructure this, in transforming their own infrastructure first. This is, oh, before I go there, sorry. This, to illustrate this, which is the cities and the smart around us, I want to propose a film that was done by a glass company, futuristic. It's a long film, less than 5 minutes, but I don't want to spend the 5 minutes. So I will take the liberty, I apologize in advance, to interrupt it at some point, but it gives you an idea of how things will be evolving and how this data collated and made smart can work in the future. So let's look at this video together. Of course, when we used to see, and this film is few years back, this was done by Corning, and as you see, it's around the glass, but you can see the amount of technology behind that, all the concepts on everything is sensing, everything is connected, everything becoming smart. They are marketing to Jennifer as Jennifer. And let's consider that this Jennifer is in few years, this little girl that we saw working, playing with the iPad in the beginning. This is the new generation that we're talking about. So it starts with the hype. We see this, we are all hyped, and we believe that this is happening. Then very often we start facing, not very often, or every time, and I lived it times and times with new technology. We live it through the disillusion because we start seeing all the obstacles. Then we move to the reality check. Something that you need to just know, this is a company that is Gartner, have defined this cycle, and they see it, and they plugged all these new technology, that all these buzzwords, even much more than the one we talked about, it from nanoscale 3D printing, graph analytics, next generation memory, sensing cameras, etc., the autonomous driving, level 1, level 2, level 4, and they put where you are from the innovation trigger, peak of inflated expectation, the through of disillusionment, slope of enlightenment, and then the plateau of productivity. And usually it takes, depending, and you see they put it differently according to the color of the dot, from 2 to 5 years, less than 2 years, etc. These were the expectations of what we talked about in 2019, just for you to see. This was the same in 2018, and you can see that certain things just started to move. Cryptocurrencies, for instance, see where it is in 2019, in 2018. Here it is in 2019. Okay, it's even not showing. So I took the main. So this is our city, now our workplace. And for you, and I guess that there are a lot of students, university leaders in the audience, just few words, again, the conscious. We are moving from the concept of workforce to work ecosystem. And if there is, I'm talking to our young audience, and there will be a talk about the career opportunity. One takeaway, please take some of these slides. I will tell you which. From a workforce to a whole work ecosystem. Now, these are something I want just quickly. If you are a service provider today, your digital transformation has to start first by digitizing what you do, then thinking to provide new digital services, and all this over a next generation infrastructure that you need to think, because your infrastructure will have to adapt. Of course, usually this is change moves like this. What we are seeing more and more, and these are research that are showing, is that that change is totally determined, can be to a different power. It's at the power of employees. So you, my young men and women listening to me, giving me the privilege of listening to me, you are the most valuable part of this equation, provided you frame it well in your mind. And we hope that these webinars will help you frame it. Today, a workforce have been traditionally people times traditional skills. And these skills were mirroring what you study in university. You study finance, you study engineering, you study business, etc. So these were easy to mirror. People by traditional skills. That's the workforce. The new work ecosystems are much more complex. They are workforce times next generation skills, AI, analytics, machine learning, UX, UI, design, time the next generation environment. And this next generation environment, if this slide was saying that, and if I was insisting on that before COVID, it makes me even more the difference, because flexible hours, remote working, digital tools, or agile workstations are even multiplied post-COVID. So this is what I want you to start thinking of. And guess what? The relation of exclusivity. One student where the teacher is having this student or this university is going to be transformed. You can have a teacher with his value as a teacher that can be used by several institutions. You can have a talent that can be used by several companies. And this, we will see it more and more, and the technology will enable this more and more. So that is illustrating the shift that we have seen. When I started, the companies, at some point, the companies that had a differentiator was the company that identified a strategy that was very different. And then the strategy became something almost a commodity. Then we reached this, total quality management. The execution was the key differentiator. Today, we are shifting to a time and era where the culture, because of all this, because of the importance of this human factor that cannot be replicated by an intelligent robot. And we will talk about this when we will talk about the societal part. That is, we are moving to the culture as differentiation. And I want to quote Peter Drucker: culture eats strategy for breakfast, operational excellence for lunch, and everything else for dinner. This is about the transformation of the workforce. Now, the last part, my preferred, and I'll be quickly, our society from to. Our society from to, we are, and I want one sentence, and my apology if it seems a little bit, kind of complex. When I started in telecom, we didn't need, I started 36 years ago in one of the largest telecom companies in the world. We didn't need to talk or have business to talk with banks. We talk with banks as customers, as clients, for loans, for funding. But our services, nothing to do with banks, nothing to do with IT companies, nothing to do with studios, cinemas, music. These were separate. Like we had these verticals. They were separate. This was the world of the unshared certainties. Telecom had the power of states. Actually, they were all state-owned companies, incumbent state-owned historical operators. We had our certainties. We didn't need anyone to come and discuss this with us, and we didn't need to share. Now, as telcos, we sit with the like of Netflix. Our services are encompassing the Netflix, the Anghami, the Deezer, the music, the Apple Music, the banks, payment, IT, etc., etc. So we are moving from unshared certainties to shared uncertainties. And that is fundamental. If you have a certainty in mind, it's good. If you think that this could be a vision, be stubborn on the vision, but challenge it 10, 15, 100 times. Make sure that you have the right question. One thing that is happening, social media is totally driving this. We are moving from depth to breadth. Today, fame doesn't come from somebody who has a very deep view of a subject or he is the best expert. Fame comes from how spread you are in these ideas, how many people are following, are, etc., etc. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's not good. This is a new reality. And I want to illustrate this just for the fun of it, with something that is dear to my heart: language, the transformation of language that in any language in the world is moving from depth to breadth. So bear with me 1 minute. This is a poetry by one of the most famous poets in the Arab world. He was labeled the Prince of Poets. And I'll translate this, although the second needs to be because it has a little trick. First part is saying, and the language of words stopped. And then the second line is saying, and your eyes talk to my eyes, the language of love. Now, the richness of the Arabic language makes that 98% of people will miss that this is your eyes that talk to my eyes because it's just a syntax and grammatical part. Not important. I was among the 3 students in the class of 44 when the teacher presented this to us that got this nuance of the Arabic language. So we were very little to go deep in the language. Today, if my son wants to express something similar to that, it will be, and the language of words stopped. This is how he will express it. And your eyes talk to my eyes, the language of love. This is how it will be. So this famous line of poetry that we use, and it has songs that sang this, will become these nice 2 things. Is this the poetry in this new digital age? Why not? But something that is quite important is that now you have very few and less that can understand the nuance of the first thing. You have billions of people that will understand more or less approximatively what somebody wants to say. And you know what? It doesn't matter if this is precise, because depth has been traded by breadth. That is fundamental. When your language is in transformation, that is fundamental in the behavior of human beings. On a more serious note, we are moving from an era of what technology says possible. This is when we started. When I started in telco, you know, engineers were dictating. These companies didn't have any competition, financial equation, or profitability. They had obscene margins. So it was not very important. Then we moved, competition started mid-2000 with the mobile, So we moved from what technology says possible to what economy says viable. Today, with the implication that it's having on societies, we are moving, and this is desirable, we are moving to what society is saying we need. It's not because we can, or not because we can afford, or it's viable economically, or it's profitable. It's because, is it useful? More and more. And I hope, and these are the new conversations that I was mentioning, we need to create these platforms where various stakeholders will sit and define the new business models and the new equations that we are seeing. So data, move to information, move to knowledge. The big question mark, as I said, everything sensing, everything connected, everything smart. Are we going to wisdom? Is this going to help wisdom? I said that all this data serve to plan the future, and the longer term future, things that we do today can impact significantly, very important, very vital things on the future of our children and our grandchildren and their children. One of these illustrations, and I will be just but this is about the debate around data, and okay, I'm not. Now we moved from human, we automated, to digital, then to smart. Are we moving to intelligent robots? I want to express an act of faith that we'll move from human to automated to digital to smart, but the next phase will be back to human. I call it back to the future. And for that, we need to move from the culture of the right answer, as I said, specifically for our audience of students, to the culture of the right question. And in this promise of the brave new world, my act of faith is that digital age will be enabler of positive transformation, an opportunity for all countries. It has to be. Now, there are a lot of governance that has to happen. Why I'm saying this? Because Generation Digital is out there. I trust the very good faith and the very good willingness and of this young people in what they want to do from technology. They are challenging sometimes technology. We are seeing some of the thing, and they are challenging it rightly. At the end, do we work by fear or by greed? It shouldn't be fear or greed. There is one recipe. We have to open our eyes. We have to open our minds as well, keep them open, and specifically open our hearts to embrace these changes. There is a sentence that I liked in the mid-90s. This was a Yahoo sentence. They're saying there is a new master of the digital universe, you. And I end by saying, I call it the new universe because it's now articulated around the individuality. So to my young audience today, you are a very important part of shaping this future, seizing these opportunities. And with that, I'm telling you, the conversation is on. You are part of it. And I thank you really, really for being patient with me today. Thank you. And I will give the floor to our moderator.
Thank you.
Your video camera. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Osman. That was fascinating to hear the story of the movement of communications in our lifetime unfold before our eyes, in a sense. And who better than someone who actually involved in the whole process and who helped it unfold before our eyes. Now, before we move on to what we wanted to discuss on career opportunities, I just wanted to tell you, people here, that what we'd like to do is we will follow now with a session on career opportunities. And then we would like to take questions which we will try and answer on your behalf. And I see that, and I would request that you put them in the questions. There's an icon which says questions. Please put your questions in there. And I'm just going to take one question now, which is the first question that I read, which is, how do I determine whether I'm capable of starting a business?
Gautam, can we do that until at the end?
I thought that, Abid, that's the kind of thing that you will address now. How you raise career, how you actually have career opportunities, and how you feel that those career opportunities could be realized. And so I pass the mic to Dr. Abid. Dr. Abid Baidas is chairman of Identity Branding Forum, which is the creator of the Talents of Endearment program. And he'll talk to us on the Talents of Endearment program and what it does in order to serve the career opportunity needs that we find in students, in the university body that we deal with. Over to you, Abid.
Thank you, Gautam. And I always call Gautam my wisdom, mind, and heart. So I always resort to him for questions that I need to care about. Let me get back to my presentation. And Mr. Osman, actually, you helped me tremendously with few takes that I'm gonna be addressing, which is actually puts it in context of everything that Talents of Endearment is about. Now, everybody, you're thinking of your dreams. You're thinking of what I can be, or I can be all I can be, driven my passion. Mr. Osman addressed the first item that he talked about, innovation. It happens by necessity, exploration, serenity, or by an accident. And this is what actually we all encounter through in our lives. But we fail, most of us fails to see the opportunities out of what is happening. And that's part of what we focus on Talents of Endearment, basically, is how to help students innovate by discovering what is being missed or overlooked tremendously or undermined tremendously. Why am I saying undermined? Because sometimes we might think it's hype because it's the moment, or it's an illusion, disillusion, I'm sorry, or it is a reality. So what we had to focus in Talents of Endearment developing the program is how to help students filter out those different elements and actually help them turn the irrational, what might sound crazy, because I always say, and Steve Jobs said, the people that are crazy are most likely the ones to change the world. And that's what we focus about, creating how do we look at what could be illusion, disillusion, or unreal to become a rational, and then look at the logic and how to make it happen with the technology that is available, with the economy scale, whether it's viable and it's desirable by society. But we focus on with Talents of Endearment on the back end desirability, the aspirations of people, because what we aim to do is help students to become a leader, a hero, and a big achiever. Because I don't believe you deserve to only be an employee of somebody, for somebody, but you deserve to be an employer of the masses of people that are needs to be led to lands of prosperities, to be different. And what I call it to be a game changer, because this is what the future is about. Mark Zuckerberg didn't come up and says, I want to create a Facebook. What he wanted to do is create a platform in the early age of internet that keeps fraternity, school friends connected when they graduate. It turned out to be the biggest massive thing on the in the internet universe. And this is what it has to be looked at. You need to start thinking in terms of the what you want to do is you need to think of changing the world. That's what we help students participating in Talents of Endearment, because what we believe is what you are capable of doing isn't based on what is being done today, but it's what should be done tomorrow, and that becomes a science. The techniques and the methods that we have researched over 24 years of my lifetime, basically, into creating the results and impactful results, especially out of experiences working with the largest companies in the world as a consultant in their branding and journey. So what we have done is brought science and humanity together in the branding journey of students' aspiration, ambition to make things real, for them to be able to change the world. And what we looked at, this is based on a Gallup study. It says 20% of your success based on what you study in school or what you do in your life, if it's a job. And 80% is based on how you get connected to people to discover the opportunities that exist, what they want and what they don't want. That's create your successful career. So what we have done in Talents of Endearment, by bringing forward what Mr. Osman Sultan said, the innovation, the hype, irrationality, the rational, and the viability, and then validate it together, put it in context. So now you have an ecosystem that helps you as a student to bring all this together. And thanks, Mr. Osman, by actually you added the gravy to the meat steak that we have. So what we have done is we show students not being normal. Normal, that's when you are able to, when you study, hopefully to get a job. And that is not good enough today. What we help students is to become exceptional. That exceptional ability is connected to people. How you can be, for example, the next Uber, or the next iPhone, or the next Google, or whatever, or the next Facebook. But that takes an ecosystem that helps you see the future that you want to shape, which we do in Talents of Endearments, and decide the career path journey, or the journey that you want to take that is relevant to your future. That makes your identity. That makes you special. That's what we did when we designed Talents of Endearment. It was designed around how to become unique and different and exceptional. That degree or the letters before your name, when you take that certificates, your degree is good to show that you have some abilities to do something. But it's not good enough to show that you have an exceptional ability that nobody else, to do the things that nobody else can do. And that's how to really be engaged to people. And we show, and through Talents of Endearment, we also help students to decide who would be caring about the opportunities. Like Mr. Osman said, what society says desirable. And that's who cares. And why it becomes the purpose for everything you want to do in your life, everything that you want to do in your career, everything that you want to do to hit that and target your future, what you want to be. And what we help students isn't focusing on making people feel good about them, of the services, of the products that they can deliver. What we help people feel great about themselves. That's when you start becoming a hero. That's what the guy that created Uber didn't create Uber because he thought of an application that will allow people to order a taxi service, a ride. What he wanted to do is solve a problem that actually became a problem, a solution to millions of people's aspirations around the world that get stranded in the streets waiting for a cab. Now it's not there, and that problem isn't there anymore. So what you really need to do, start focusing. We help students through Talents of Endearment, how to make people feel great and test it. And what we do also is make them focus on the future, validated. What is viable, what is not. Not what you study in college today is on what did happen. What we help you is to discover what should happen. Think Uber, think Facebook. What should happen for Uber is service that allows people to order a taxi on demand, right there, quick, without the struggle or the pain of getting it there. So the future becomes related to your passion for people's aspirations. That becomes your purpose to build your career. That becomes everything about you. That's what makes you become unique and different. And what we looked at, the types of opportunities, there is a direct opportunities. You're an IT programmer. You are an application programmer. Great. What does that mean to me? Indirect. Well, my application will help you now to order your taxi without the struggles and pains, waiting in the streets or running all over the streets to find a taxi out there. That becomes an inspiration. That's an indirect opportunity that's connected to what you are studying or what you are doing. And that's the ecosystem that we built, and through the Talents of Endearment will actually allow students to look at what they're studying for, the skills, and the indirect opportunities, what should be for. And this is exactly when you look at it. When you look at these pictures. You have tens and twenties and thousands or hundreds of people out there. Can you imagine how many opportunities out there? Think of this. Think of what you hate the most today that you would like to do something about or change tomorrow. That's an opportunity. And well, think of what you're studying now that could help you develop a solution for that opportunity. What we help students also, not only to look at themselves, but also to look at the masses around them, the community around them, and build community of communities to discover all the aspirations or opportunities available out there. Listening to all the things that people hate the most or would like to do something about to change tomorrow, that becomes your valuable opportunity. That becomes a desire Mr. Osman mentioned earlier of society. That creates your viability. Because if I have a market, now I have an economic platform. I have a base for success. And we help students to actually align the two together that becomes your purpose. So you start looking not what you study because I like it. Everybody's telling me the future is in artificial intelligence. The future isn't in artificial intelligence. It is in what you are able to serve people with artificial intelligence. That's the future. That becomes your purpose. That becomes a game change for everybody that you really need to start looking at in your lifetime. So what we do through Talents of Endearment, we established 7 foundations, pillars to help them decide people's aspiration. That creates your passion. Now I'm passionate about helping people find the easy ride, find easy solutions, find the solution to their problems. That becomes the purpose of the company that I want to start or the career that I'm studying. Isn't because I wanted, the future is in engineering. Years ago, in the 60s, they used to say, the future is in civil engineering. You see people flooded going to civil engineering schools. Now they cannot find jobs. They started saying, well, the future is for whoever carries the master's degree program, or in the 80s in the PhD programs. Today, none of them is able to find jobs. Who can find jobs? The ones who created them that never graduated college. If you're wondering who, talk about Steve Jobs, talk about Bill Gates, and quite a few of the others, the Einsteins and the likes. So what you need to do, how to become, what your task, your life, whatever you're doing has a purpose to people. It's not about you making money. It's a given. It's by default, you will be making money if you're delivering something valuable to people that makes them feel great about themselves. That's your future. And that's define the opportunities that you start really tailoring about for you to become the big achiever. Now, what's important, what we do in Talents of Endearment, is who to collaborate with. Who to collaborate with isn't your closest friend or your best friend. What you really need to do to collaborate is we help you decide who are the ones that could be relevant to help you or give you the right ideas, the right perspective, the right thoughts, the honest advice, but relevant, that with the capabilities relevant to what you want to do, to your purpose, because everything is about your purpose in life. So what we help you through Talents of Endearment, help you put everything in context for your future, to create relevancy to a meaningful career. Today, you are telling yourself, I'm in college. Jobs and employments are on the rise. Economy is bad. What good is it what I'm studying for my future? This is what Talents of Endearment is about. Create relevancy by helping you discover the abundance of opportunities that you are not seeing, and help you identify the relevant ones to the career that you have been studying for. And that's how we help you make your dream come true. Simple, but it's a process that we help students to go through in our program. We help you to think of changing the world. And it's possible because it becomes your aspirations to fulfill people's aspirations, like I mentioned. Your Talents of Endearment. Endearment is the word that how you can really get closer to people. I will not let you into my house or invite you to dinner, like Mr. Osman is saying, invited us earlier in this conversation, which most of you caught up, unless you have a feel of trust or comfort. You really need to get close to people to like you, to listen to you, or to open up to you. That's what's important, what we do through Talents of Endearment. For example, we help you focus on aspirations. People want to have a great jobs, lose weight, have a healthy living, find a cure for arthritis, for example, education, learn world cultures. So what to do, for example, when you think about technology, I'm traveling all the time, all over the world. I miss my wife. I miss my kids. It's time to really see them in front of me. Or how logistically I'm able to handle all of the stuff. Think today, for example, the Pfizer vaccine. With all the logistical challenges that they have, how could technology or communications could actually help to really provide that problem or to address that problem, thinking ahead? If today the challenges are for the COVID-19 vaccine, what happens if we have another corona vaccine problems in the future? The type of the problems that we could be having in the future. Whatever I think in my mind, I can always see it automatically, whether it's through chips or whatever. Like Mr. Osman said, things are going so fast, but you shouldn't be about how fast it is, but it should be about how fast you can discover the opportunities associated, what's out there for you. Don't worry about the technology because somebody else is doing it. Somebody else is developing it. Think about building the opportunities for those. Like Mr. Osman said, YouTube is the largest media company in the world. They don't develop their own content. What they did, they became an enabler that provided opportunities for people like you and I to post our videos, to sing, listen, talk to each other. And what else could be, for example, right now through technologies, we have master surgeons across in the United States, for example, running surgeries in middle of Africa. That's unique. That's technology. That's communication. But it solved the problems because I don't have facilities, equipment in the middle of African jungle, so that I need to really resort to something where I can tap into that expert help in the United States with no expense, with the least expense possible from transporting them. Imagine the number of lives that you're going to be able to save. That's how you need to think. Think about, for example, e-learning. When we were the first that brought e-learning into the Arab world in 2002. When we started talking to universities and universities presidents, we had the largest e-learning platform in the world outside of the United States. And when they start talking, it's impossible, it's irrational. Students want campus life. They don't want to study through, when we were talking through technology, through boxes, through computers, what we said to them was the future is coming to the time when students are going to be studying through their watches. They were thinking we were crazy. But we were seeing what is going to happen in 2002, that this student education today in 2020, discovering a reality. What was irrational, crazy back then, now it is applicable. Now it's easy for me to study anywhere in the world, at any university in the world that I can tap into, because education isn't limited to your degree or to the courses that you take, because that's available on the internet. Go to Google, you will find most updated references that you can ever dreamed of, and it's not even available at your universities. Think of also, how can I take e-learning to the areas that has no schools, that I can provide education now to everybody, anybody. And if it doesn't have classes, great. Now through the phones, I can teach them. So that's a solution. That's the hope. That's how you start making people feel great about themselves. And what we did when we designed Talents of Endearment, able to bring out, to start discovering them. Help people lose weight, count their counters, measure their hearts, and live healthy, all the things that you want to do. And what we did in Talents of Endearment is help. We're showing students to learn how to give for them to grow. Because when society grow, when the people that you are helping to make feel great about themselves grow, by default you're growing. Facebook, think of Uber. Now he's what Facebook, the wealthy. Well, think of the Amazon. All what they did is they created the stores, created the convenient, that today they became number one. But it wasn't about building technology. It was about the solution, how I can help people. That's how you really need to start thinking, how to help people. And that becomes your greatest success. And that's how you become the opportunities. And what we do, help you create a balance between your purpose, what you will learn through Talents of Endearment, define it, and the market expectations, which is how to give, and the people aspirations for you to grow. That's a balance, and then validate it. Okay, it's not only to discover the viability of your ideas, but it's also to validate it, to make sure it's going to work. And somebody is going to accept it at the different scales, whether an investor or talents. And that's what the program that we run of Talents of Endearment. And this is the big news that we have. And I will share this video with you. So what we have done is we've created Talents of Endearment, which is a program that is of 33 days online that is taking. We have the next session that starts in January the 21st through the February the 22nd. And this is the link of it. You will find it also in the handout tab, those links available to you. And the next thing, basically, we have also, it's a One Life subscription where you will have everything that you need, 33 days plus lifetime support that is giving you the opportunities never to be alone again in your career development. And where you will have a platform support of 5 years and an online community support and a certificate of achievement award that is being provided to you by our certification board, especially designed by presidents of universities from around the world to help you win that credibility. And the fee of that program, the first 2,000 registrants, it's massive. It's around the world. We have a number of testimonials. When you see the link out there, with the promo code is $90 because it's sponsored right now by the Board of Trustees, Generosity. And after the 2,000 registrant, it's $150 per person, which is actually 50% introductory sponsored fees as well. Out of the original fees is $300 for that particular program. We also have a town hall meeting to answer all of your questions relevant to this program on the 23rd of December. That's next week. I apologize. It's Wednesday, not Saturday. Mistakes happens. Nobody's perfect. This is the link of it. That's for you. Please register. And this is the link actually for the events.identitybrandingforum.net for the upcoming events, programs, and to be able to see all the things that you have right now. With this, I give the floor back to you, Gautam.
Thank you, Abid, for your exposition on Talents of Endearment. We, of course, welcome all you students in the audience today to participate with us in the town hall meeting, where a lot of your questions will be answered, but also to take advantage of the generous offer, of $90 for the 33-day program that Dr. Abid just announced. I would welcome more questions from the student body that's attending and the others also. But in the interim, let me ask Mr. Osman, if I may, a question that has come up twice in the questions column today, which is a degree of discomfort with technology. One part of the question is, does technology, and specifically mobile phone vibrations, etc., vibrations in quotes, do they have health impacts? And the second question from the same person, Ali Hadid is his name. He says that he works in the social, he has activities in the social work arena. And he says that people who he works with in social work do not accept technology, development actually, because they are scared of technology. Where would you guide questions of this nature, Mr. Osman? There must be a body of research that is able to either confirm or refute these kind of questions. But there's certainly a concern. Where would you guide him, Mr. Osman? I pass the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Gautam. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, the health and safety question is not new. The health and the health and safety question, I had it in public televised debate in '98 and at the beginning of mobile. And at the time, the argument was, yes, but this technology is new. People are starting really to use it since 95, 96. So we don't have enough. Now we are 25 years after. And I think that now, to address formally the question, Mr. Gautam, there is a body that is in charge of this in every country. It's called the Telecom Regulatory Authority. So any formal and specific question about level of frequencies, radiation, etc., what are the norms, not the norms, this body is supposed to answer. Of course, the telecom operators, they have this, but they do not consider that this is, they are entitled to answer these. The formal independent body, government body that has this responsibility are always, in every country, there is something called a telecom regulatory authority. Now, at the level of the world, there have been research.
Mr. Osman, could you turn your video on, please?
Okay. Sorry. Thank you very much. Okay. So in addition to locally, every telecom regulatory authority that has in charge everything related to monitor, regulate, control, arbitrate, if need be, the telecom sector, you have global organizations. You have the International Telecommunication Union, and there are teams that did as well research in conjunction. International Telecommunication Union is a division of the United Nations. Of course, you have the World Health Organization that is a division of the United Nations. So but now some people, rightly, not rightly, challenge as well these international organizations. And I heard it several times. Yes, but these international organizations are somehow at the service of the big capital and the big profit and the big corporations. That's a debate. I can't, go into this debate. I think it's taken. But the reality is, World Health Organization said that mobile, the only thing I can do is give you what they say and tell you my personal experience. The World Health Organization said there is no interference or any risk, because we've been hearing this provokes cancers, etc., all these radiation. Now the debate is on for 5G, and people tell you, yes, okay, maybe for the previous generation. We've heard this debate. We've seen even people saying 5G is the cause of COVID, etc. I mean, just to be in the actuality, which I don't think at all. Now, my personal experience, I was in 2001, I was at the head of the largest mobile operator in Egypt. It's now Orange Egypt. My team came and said, in your building, we have an agreement. So instead of having only the base station and the antenna is on another building, we are combining and we are putting the antenna on the rooftop of your building. It just happened that I occupy the roof, and this antenna would be just on top of where my children, they were 1 year old, 3 years old at the time, would live. And they say, if you want, if you're not uncomfortable, we can change it. I mean, I said, how can I go and stand in front of people? And we asked them, we want to put antennas on the rooftops like it is in every country, from Switzerland to the UK, to Europe, to the US, to every country in the world that care, countries that care about the health and well-being of their citizens. And these are the rules. How can I, just because I have, it will be totally inconsistent, unethical. I cannot do this. But I said, what I can do is maybe a double check. They strapped me literally and they hold me, and I was out of the window with the instrument that measured the interference. So I took it all around, and I went then on the roof to see what's the level. So unless you are at a certain distance from the antenna radius, so it's like you are at, I can tell you that the signal was much less when you pass next to a TV and this TV is off. I passed with the same next to a TV. The engineers in my company told me this. So I felt totally, and this antenna exists, and I still have, this is my apartment in Egypt still. So that's my personal experience. 5G, I do not have a personal experience. It's totally new. It happened. But I am a person that worked in an industry. I trust what international organizations do. And it's quite difficult and it's quite a responsibility to stand like that and say, no, I can assure you, not now, not in the future. For the 2G, 3G, 4G, it is there since years. So there has not been any facts that corroborate that this has a direct or indirect impact. I don't know for 5G. I leave it to everyone to do his research. I think that ethically, but I personally do not believe that it gives anything. So that's on the... Now, the fact that social workers and the fact that a lot of people have some apprehension about technology, and I see these happening in cycle. The gentleman is absolutely right. People are now, there is a big thing about the cybersecurity, about my privacy, about fraud, about recently in a social event, I invited one of my ex-engineers that used to work for me, who's the specialist in cybersecurity, to give a talk about how you need to take some reflexes in order to protect your privacy, to avoid the hackers and the maleficent people, and these exist. The good news is that technology always provide the antidote for the disease that it provokes when it comes to security, because these techniques allow now to protect more. And that's a constant, that will be, in my opinion, something that will happen constantly. It will be a dynamic work, but more and more we will need to be very careful about the way our data is handled, the people that can impersonify our identity, enter bank accounts, etc. So somehow people with simple or less sophisticated experience, I can see it's legitimate. They're right to be concerned. They're right. It's up to us to have a proactive approach to show them that, yes, it's not, no, that totally you're not, this is not right. This is wrong. It's not the case. Show them, yes, there is this, but there are ways to be able, sometimes it's beyond the simplicity that is needed. Fine, we have to. The more things are moving, the more, in my opinion, things will change.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Mr.
There are
Osman.
two people wants to have two questions. Do you want to have them talk?
Yes, I would prefer to have them talk. If you can give them the mic,
Go
please.
back to you. So then we give them to speak. The first one, I think, by the name of Parth.
Yeah, Abid, would you be so kind as to offer him the mic?
I did.
Yeah, lovely.
I gave the first one, Parth, to ask the question. Parth, can you hear me?
Barth?
Parth, you need to unmute your mic.
And who is the other Abid?
Okay, the other one, Khothari. I cannot pronounce the name. I think Barth cannot hear us. I'll give the... Khothari, can you hear us? Khothari, can you hear us? Please
okay.
unmute your mic.
That's okay. If they're not able to hear us, would you like to take the audience into the poll?
Yes.
We do our concluding remarks.
Okay, we will. First of all, I want to ask the first poll. This is what it is. How hopeful you are about your future? Please, all of you, do participate. This is important because we would like to get the feedback in order to see how we can help in the future. The subject we chose, the topics.
And it is the only way that we can respect your viewpoint and improve what we try to do, in Talents of Endearment. So really appreciate. I see there are more than 20 responses to the question.
Okay, I'm gonna maybe best to show the result to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the result. 60% they feel positive. 4 stars, 25%. 3 stars, 14%, and 1 star, 1 person, 5%. Okay.
Right.
Let's go to the second one. How satisfied are you with your career? Please do share your views, because this is it's the only way with that we can measure how to help you. Okay. Rate the knowledge you gained in this webinar. Please do share with us. Okay. Rate this session. Okay. I know that's not everybody. So do share, please. Because this is the only way we can improve. Rate the speakers. Honestly, if you like this or you didn't. Only to do our best. Okay. And the last, what help do you need to boost your career? Please write it so we know what else we can do for you. Okay, I guess everybody's shy to say what they want. Guidance, okay? That's exactly what Talents of Endearment is about. Such information webinar which can motivate us. Great. Career development skills, employability skills, and that's what we do with Talents of Endearment. I'm going to share some of these comments. And I do advise you guys to take our offer in terms of joining our January program, or at minimum, do attend our town hall meeting, and it's complimentary. And that's going to be next week. You have the link in your handouts to tap it and register. Okay. I guess this concludes the session, Gautam. What do you think of going for the closing remark?
Thank you. Thank you, Abid. Well, all I can say is this was one of our longest sessions, 2 hours.
Okay, I see Parthi is back online. Can we give him a proof?
Yes, please give him the mic.
Parth, the mic is yours. This is your second trial. Can you unmute your mic? Doesn't seem he's able to mute it.
Okay, it's okay. Let's leave it for the time being. Parth, if you can hear me, you could write to us at info@talentsofendearment.com, and we can move on from there. I was saying that this is one of the longest sessions we've had, about 2 hours. And yet it's been so captivating because, it is an industry sector, communications, that interests all of us. It touches all of us hugely, both on the business platform and on the social platform. And we seriously couldn't have had a better speaker on the subject than Mr. Osman Sultan, given his years of experience, knowledge, and expertise in the sector. There were almost 50 of you that sat through this entire program. I thank you all for participating. I hope you have been able to learn something that we were able to share on the communication sector and on the Talents of Endearment program. And as Abid has mentioned, we look forward to see you at the town hall meeting first, and then at the session that we are conducting for 33 days, starting on the 21st of January. On behalf of Mr. Osman Sultan and Dr. Abid Baidas, thank you once again. Good evening and have a good one. Thank you.
Mr. Osman, do you have a final word to say? Hold on a second.
I just want to reiterate reiterate the thanks that Mr. Gautam has given to the entire audience. We really thank them. It was a long presentation, but this is a subject where we can talk hours, and I felt it like minutes. So I thank everybody for their patience. I hope that I haven't abused this patience. It's always very refreshing to talk with a different audience and not specialists of telecom and telling the story. Thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to comments, remarks that will allow me to improve. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to say, first of all, thank you, Mr. Osman, for the opportunity of joining us today. Thank you, Gautam, for the efforts you made. But we couldn't make this enjoyable and fruitful without our audience, our students, our hope for the future. And that's what we really hope to see, because like I said, you are our future, that we are looking to help us. Today we are young. I'm over 20. Like Mr. Osman said, we are about the same age, so we are close to that parameters. We couldn't run a football game with you today, but what we can do is collaborate with you, guide you by your hand in order to make that journey. And stop listening to the noises around you. There's a lot of noise out in the world. Everybody is there to tell you something, that they can do something. This is what you should do and this is what you should not do. The only voice you should listen to is the noise you make. That's what makes you special and unique. And that's what we really love and passionate about, helping you build for it. So whatever decision you make today, whatever choice you make today is going to be it's going to be the consequence of everything happens in your life, your journey. Make the right choices, choose the right people. And that's, if you cannot find it, if you cannot decide who are the right people, if you cannot decide what are the right choices, come to us. We want to help you. And what we did with the program, and when we said 2,000 people then there, because we are funding a lot of activities and we have a number of sponsors that are helping to facilitate this to students all over the world, but only because we want to create a difference. We cannot do it without you. You are our hope. See you next week. We posted the links. You have the material on your handouts. Please take them. You will receive also the certificate after this webinar is over, completed. You will receive all the handouts also in the email for you, in case you missed it. If you didn't do it with us, do it with whatever somebody else. But make sure you have a purpose that is viable, validated, to make your life relevant, to become different. Thank you. Don't forget, stay safe, positive, and productive. Don't stop. Don't listen to the noise except yours. God bless. Take care. Salam alaikum. Thank you, Mr. Osman. Thank you, Gutam.